today's session, I'm going to go through loosely this training summary, which you can find on Edit. So I'll just pop the link to that in the chat as well, so that you can reference that after the session. But we're going to start off with how to access our Microsoft apps. And to do that, I always like to bring us, and it's written here as well, to the EdPass portal. So I'll put that in the chat as well, just in case you don't have that bookmarked. The EdPass portal is great because although we're focusing on the M365 apps today, in the EdPass portal, you'll also see a whole lot of tiles up the top there. Now, some of these tiles, like style, for instance, you might not have access to if you don't have a license associated with your school, but there are some really handy links there for things that you might have access to. But scrolling down, the Microsoft 365 portal is where we're looking at today. Now, just on that, next to that, you'll see a whole lot of icons for Microsoft products. I'm going to point out that there are a lot more Microsoft products than what you see in the EdPass portal, and we're going to have a look at those now. So if you are on this page and do want to follow along with me, if we click into the M365 portal, now this has changed a bit in the last few months even, because we now have access to M365 Copilot, which is Microsoft's AI. We're not really going to touch on that today. At the moment, I prefer our EdChat to what we can access in Copilot. I think Microsoft still needs to work out a few hiccups with their web version. But what we're going to look at is the apps down the side here. And then once we get into that, we're going to click on the All Apps as well. Now, just before I click there, you'll notice this big blue button in the top right. That allows you to install Microsoft 365 onto your device. Now, with our license in the department, if you're a permanent staff member, you can install M365 onto up to 5 devices. If you're a contractor, when you have an active contract, that's the same for you as well. But just note that if your contract ends, your licensing will end, so you'll need to move your files over. I think you've only got about 2 weeks to do that. If you are a TRT, unfortunately, your license doesn't include installing the apps unless you're associated with a school as well, but you can still use all the web-based apps with your @schools email. Okay, so we are going to click into All Apps now. And here is where we've got a list of all the apps that you have available to you in the M365 suite of apps. Now, there's a couple on here that aren't really worth looking at. I'll point those out as we go though. But we will dive into bookings as our first one. Now, bookings can be useful if you want to set up things like parent interviews. Not as useful for corporate staff because it relies on your @schools email, and we're using our GovSA calendar normally, but useful for setting up meetings, parent-teacher meetings, or if you're a leadership person and you want to have office hours, for example, and you want your staff to be able to book in. I'll just go quickly into this one. This here has been set up. You can see there's all the staff in here and when they're available. But this one here, if I was giving this to my parents, for example, I just give them this link. Oops, let's go there. And you can see they could then select the person that they wanted, and this person's available at these times, and then add in their details to book. So useful if you don't have another way of doing parent-teacher interviews. So that's bookings. Calendar, we're not going to look at because this is basically opening up our Outlook, but staying on our calendar page. Class notebook we come to in a little bit, but we are going to jump into Clipchamp. Now, if I click on these tiles, I will have gone to the app, and then I have to go back. So if I go to the 3 dots instead, I can go open in a new tab. Okay, so Clipchamp, give me a thumbs up with the reactions if anyone remembers Windows Movie Maker. Is there anyone on the call? Yes, there's one thumbs up at least. So Windows Movie Maker went out of fashion, I would say, about 10 years, 12 years, maybe even 20 years ago. And Clipchamp is Microsoft's revamped version of this. You can upload videos, you can do screen recordings, you can record your camera, etc., and create videos. So if I go into here, for example, I can start recording. I can pick the screen that I want to record. I don't want to actually do Microsoft Clipchamp, otherwise it will struggle. So let's find a different one. There we go. It will count down and then it will record my screen. And then I've got some things that I can do. I can open it up in the editor if I've got the desktop app installed as well. And I can put in title slides and things like that and make a nice little video. So that's Clipchamp. The other thing with Clipchamp, you'll notice here I've got lots of things called recording, or they've got this recording symbol here. They're all meetings that I've had recorded. So in Clipchamp and Stream, they've kind of been merged. You'll be able to access any meeting recordings of meetings through Teams that have been recorded. Okay, let's leave that. Okay, connections we don't use in our tenancy. Excel I'm not going to go into today, but we are going to jump into forms. So Microsoft Forms is fantastic because we can share this outside of our tenancy as well, which means we can use this to get information from parents or people outside our tenancy. I've got a couple of examples here of some forms. So this one here is an example of a form that I might send to my parents asking for canteen volunteers. You can see it's got some red starred questions which are required. So this case, because it's outside our tenancy, I want the name of the parent. This one also has something called branching, which means that if they select one of these, so maybe several days a week, it then asks some additional questions that it wants them to put in before we submit it. This is another example from Forms. This is the back end of Forms, but this might be I might want my students to create a form to get some data so that I can use that in my maths when we're doing graphs and things like that. So traditionally, I might have got them all to write them on a piece of paper and photocopy them and send them around the class. I can use forms instead. And this also means that I can get my students to ask their family and friends outside of school. This is another example from forms, just showing that you can add images. So again, if I go into preview, this one's a student representative voting example. So my younger kids, my JP kids, might not be able to read those names, but hopefully they can see which person they wanted to vote for. And again, this one's got branching. So when they choose the house they're in, they can then vote for their person. I'm just going to quickly show you the back end of forms as well. So when you get forms submitted, all this data is live, but it also gives you a really nice summary of what has been submitted. So this one here, you can see how many people submitted the form. You get a nice little graph because this was a multiple choice question. If it's a short answer question, you get a nice little word cloud that comes up. And you can actually share this with people, even if they don't have access to the form. The other nice thing about forms is you can see there's an Excel logo here. All the data comes into an Excel spreadsheet, so you can do all sorts of things with that as well. Okay, back to my apps. Any questions? I can't see anything in the chat so far. Don't know if no questions is good or not, but hopefully everyone is still following along. Learning, I'm not going to go into because a lot of the things in learning, you actually need subscriptions. It's not part of our license, but we will have a quick look at lists. So list is SharePoint lists, and the app list, which you can also get as a desktop app, is basically a nice front-end kind of way for you to access all your lists. So you can see in here, underneath the list name, there's some more information, and this has actually grouped all my SharePoint lists from lots of different teams that I belong to. I'm just going to go into this one. So this is what I'm talking about when I talk about a list. A SharePoint list is a bit like an Excel spreadsheet, but you can see it's got some nice things happening in here. I can put in nice hyperlinks. I can do lookups for people, for example. There's a whole lot of things that I can do which I can't do in Excel. This one is a very basic list, but you can do all sorts of things to do with animation. You can animate from a list as well. So if you put in dates and things like that, you can get email reminders and things like that. Loop, we will quickly go into. Loop components are Microsoft's collaboration kind of add-on that you can use in Teams. And what they do is they allow you to collaborate in one message rather than having 10 different messages. So, for example, here, this one here, we've got several people in here. So if 3 people have contributed to this list, and we've all been able to work on it at the same time. It's not like a Word document, it's just a small kind of planning component. I'll show you one more. So this one here, excursion ideas. So again, this was a list, and these were all in Teams chats, but I can find them in here after if I need to. OneDrive we will jump into as well. So if you're not using OneDrive, I highly recommend that you have a think about starting to use it. OneDrive is your cloud space, and it's where we want you to store your Me files. So the files that you're working on for yourself that aren't business critical for the team or the wider team, they're files that you're working on for you. Now, when I say the cloud, what I mean is that anything you save in your OneDrive is saved off of a local device, which means that you can access it from any device anywhere. In OneDrive, I've got some things down the side. One of them is media, which is really helpful. So media, sorry about the bad screenshot, but media goes in and picks out all your movie files and image files, so that if you know you saved an image in your OneDrive somewhere but you can't remember what it is, you can go in and find it from here. Just one caveat to that. If you are, for example, a media arts teacher, or your main job is comms or something like that, you might find that you have an error message in this space. That simply means that you've got too many images or videos in your OneDrive, and Microsoft can't display them as thumbnails. So hopefully you don't, but if you do that, that's fine. The meetings tab is really useful as well. So if you've had any Teams meetings, and again, if you are in corporate and people have set up Teams meetings in your SA Gov instead of your at schools, you might not find anything in here. But if you're school-based, you might find things in here. It's really handy because you can see the name of the meeting, but also if any files were shared in the meeting or any videos were saved, or this is a recording, for example, of that session, you can access those straight from your OneDrive without having to go and find where it was in the chat, where the chat is in your Teams. Right, we will quickly dive into my files. So you can see here, I've got lots of files. One thing that you can do with OneDrive, so that it's not just on your browser that you're accessing your files, but you can also do something called syncing, which means that your OneDrive is mirrored on your desktop device. So this is my file explorer, and you can see here I've got July and I've got the same folder here. And what that means is that instead of opening up my browser, I can simply go in like I might be used to doing and open and close files from my file explorer, just like if this was my local machine. So that's a really handy thing to do if you're using OneDrive. Another nice thing about OneDrive is if you save your files on OneDrive, you've got this thing called version history, which means you can restore previous versions of your file as well. So some really good features if you start using OneDrive. Okay, OneNote we will jump into now. So I mentioned Class Notebook here. We've got OneNote and there's Staff Notebook as well. So these are all different forms of Microsoft OneNote. It's a desktop app as well as the web version. I'm just going to pop into the desktop app because I've got it already. So basically OneNote is a bit like an electronic notebook, and I always compare it to those yellow spirally books with all the different tab dividers. that's a bit like what OneNote is. So this example here is a staff meeting example. I've got all my agendas here and I can quickly flick between each of the weeks. And then I've also got my minutes here. Now, why might I use OneNote for something like this as opposed to Word documents saved in a folder somewhere? It's so easy to flick between different things. You can also use the search to find things. So if it's much easier than opening up lots of different documents to find which week something is in. Another nice thing about OneNote is, if I can find the right one, you can put all sorts of things into a OneNote. It's not just text. And so you can put images. If I go to my content library, you can embed videos. You can put in, you can put in tables. You can link to things. So this is a link to a file that's saved in a Teams. You can embed Teams. I don't think it's in this one. Let's see if it's in this one. No, I'm not going to be able to find it now, but you can do things like file printouts, which mean that you can put in a worksheet, for example, and then you can use these draw tools and draw over the top of them as well. So that's really exciting. You can see this one is an example of how I used OneNote on my whiteboard as a teacher. So I just drew away, and then the next lesson I can come back and see what I've done, and the students can access this if you're using Class Notebook with OneNote as well. Okay, so that's OneNote. Outlook. Hopefully you're all really familiar with Outlook. I am just going to point out a couple of little things in here though that might be time savers for you. So in Outlook, if I flag a message, because it's a really important thing, down the side here, I've got this thing called To Do. And if I go into To Do, anything that I've flagged, so I've got this category called flagged emails, will pop up into here. So there's that one that I just flagged. So instead of having to scroll and find all those flagged emails, if I've flagged it so I can come back to it, I can always find it by going to the To Do and then flagged, and there it is straight away. With the To Do bit, this is linked to something called Planner, which we'll have a look at in a moment, but it's a way for you to do checklists if you're a person that loves checklists. So you can do an electronic checklist and check things off as well. Calendar. I will just mention one thing in the calendar, and that is, so if I'm doing a new meeting or doing a meeting request, one thing that people don't always remember to do is check this thing called Scheduling Assistant. Now, if you are in a school and you're a teacher, you might not be using your calendar because you've got your teaching hours and that's it. But if you're in a leadership position or you're an admin person or you're booking meetings for other people, this scheduling assistant is really, it's what you should be checking to check that when you're trying to book in the meeting, there's no things that clash there. Now, if you're a corporate, you don't want to be using your at-school Outlook to check for that. you want to be in your SAGov for this one. Okay, let's discard that and hop out of Outlook and back to our All Apps. And this is Planner, which I did mention just then with the to-do. Planner is a bit of an extension of to-do. You can have your own plans, but you can also, so this one's only me, you can also create plans to share with your team. So if I go into this one, for example, I've got my term set up and then I've got different tasks, and you can see here there's a different logo here. That's because these have been assigned to different people. It's really cool. Let's see if there's one that's a bit better. So this one here, I've been tagging some things. I've got the due date. I've got a list of different things, and when I tick them off, they disappear, but I can go in and have a look. I can add details and links. And if I add it to a team, the whole team can see that. These are called buckets, so I can move things around if I want to, if I've got some things that are in a progression, but it's really nice that I can assign these to other people and everyone can be on the same page. In here, there is a My Day, so if you do have things assigned that are due today, they will pop up there. And the My Tasks are everything that's been assigned to you. So you can see this poor account has got lots of things assigned to them that haven't been done and are overdue by almost a year, if not more. Okay, Power Automate, again, we're not going to go into too much detail for this one, but if you are doing lots of repetitive things, so say you look after relievers or requests for time off, you could create a form, for example, and then you could build something called a flow that works when the form has been submitted and might send you an email to let you know that the form's been submitted, or it might send an approval email to the person that needs to approve that leave, or it might create a planner task. There's lots of things that you can do in Power Automate to help automate those things that you might be having to do all the time. That is simply sending an email that says the same thing, or alerting someone, or asking someone to approve. So this is what it looks like. This one here, when an email is flagged, it creates a task in Planner. It translates what is in the email to some text. It adds that to the Planner and it updates the Planner task. So a little bit complex, but there is Copilot built in Power Automate, and Copilot in this case is very helpful when you're trying to figure out what you want to do and how things are going, or why things are going wrong. There are also a whole lot of templates that you can use in Power Automate as well. Okay, Power BI, I'm not going to go into today, but that is for creating dashboards. Each school has a dashboard that has been created, but you can also create your own dashboards with your own data. I will open one up. So this one here is our feedback, or it's an old feedback dashboard. It's no longer active, but you can see there's a visual and then there's some number cards, and you can sort it according to date ranges as well. Okay, PowerPoint we won't go into. Project you don't have access to under our license. You can pay for a license for Project. So there's a form that you can fill out, and I'll give those details to you in a follow-up email after this session. Reading Coach, we won't go into today either. Sway, we have a quick look at, and I'm aware that we're running out of time, but Sway is kind of like a website builder, kind of, but this one as well is accessible to people outside of the department. So people, for example, or schools, for example, might use it for their newsletter. It looks quite nice. It's something called reactive, which means that if you change the shape, so say you're a parent reading this on your phone, you can see that it has changed the font size and the images to fit this smaller screen. Another nice thing about Sway is, if I go back to here, you do get some analytics. They're not very detailed. I can't see who has gone in and looked at my Sway, but I do get some idea. So if I send a newsletter, for example, I can see how many people have actually opened it, whether they spent a long time reading it, and if they didn't, that might think I might need to rethink how I set my newsletter out. How many people finished it, and then some analytics around how many people just glanced, read it quickly, or read the whole thing. So might be more useful than if you just send out a PDF newsletter and you're not sure who's accessed what. One more example for Sway. This is not a horizontal, not a vertical one, but a horizontal one, so you can change the look and feel. Excuse me. You can embed videos in here as well, and links and all these things as well. So quite useful, and students can also create these ones and share them. So this is an example of a student portfolio that they could share with their work experience employer or prospective employers as well. Okay. Teams we are not going to look at today, I promise you. Visio is for doing flowcharts. You only have access to the web version of Visio in your M365 license. Let's see if this has actually got anything in there. I think it's going to be blank, but Visio should let you create diagrams and flowcharts. So if you're having your students do anything around computational thinking and pathways and choosing decision making, great for your students to come in and build. Or if you're in the front office and you're needing to do a behaviour management flowchart or rubbish bin sorting or anything like that, Visio can help you there. And I forgot to press the 3 dots. Okay, the last one we're going to jump into is Whiteboard. And I don't think we're going to have much time at all to look at the accessibility tools. I've been talking too much. So Whiteboard is a whiteboard. It can be used in Teams, so you can embed it in a Teams channel, or you can open it up in a Teams meeting. or you can use it as a standalone. One of the nice things about Whiteboard is it does have all these pre-built templates that you can use, and it does have some that are educational based as well. So it does have some that are quite nice for teachers. So it's all set up. You can collaborate on these. You can't share them outside of the department, but you can definitely share them with your students so that they can add post-it notes right on there, etc. Whoever contributes, their name is associated with what they've contributed as well. Okay, so we have just about run out of time. And if I go back to our training summary that I showed you at the very beginning, we haven't had a look at these at all. I'll send some additional links around these, but I think probably the one that we might spend a tiny bit of time on now, because we've got a mix of mainly admin, I'm not going to go into Immersive Reader because that is really for teachers, but Dictate is quite a good one if you are wanting, or if you're not that fast at typing. So we might just bring up Dictate. Now, Dictate is available in all sorts of apps. It is available in the desktop version of apps as well as the web version. But I'm just going to use the web version of Word to do this. You can use Dictate whenever you see this little microphone icon. And hopefully, because I've pressed it, it will start typing on the screen what I'm saying. Now, I'm going to have to go back and do some editing. It will put in, as you can see, I paused, so it put in a question. So it will put in punctuation, or I can also say full stop, and it will change it to a full stop. So great for admin if you're not that fast at typing, noting that you will have to go back and do some editing. If you're working with students, either as a teacher or an SSO, and you're working with students who struggle writing down their ideas but have heaps of ideas, great tool to use with them so that they can spit out all their ideas and then go back after and edit, reformulate, and recraft their ideas into some structured writing. So that is a really good tool. There is also in here Transcribe. So if you use the Transcribe, let's try that instead. What it will do is if there's more than one person talking, it will put in different people talking. And it will also, once it's done that, hopefully, oh, I think it's blocked. Manage. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. Let's go back. But if it wasn't blocked here, I think it wants me to sign in again. If it wasn't blocked in, oh, it looks like we've done it. So you can see it would, if I'd have said more, it would have done timestamps for me and it would have said which speakers were speaking. Again, this isn't a summary, this is just a recording. It won't always get what you have said correct, but it is useful if you then want to copy and paste that into something like EdChat to get a summary of what was discussed and the most important parts. Okay, that has just about brought us to the time. So I do want to just finish with a couple of places where you can go for additional information and help. So we have a YouTube channel. I say we, that's Digital Skills, Technology and Platform Adoption. On here you will find previous webinar recordings, and I can see there's some questions in there. I'll get to those as well. So you'll find previous webinar recordings, but you'll also find lots of really short videos on how to do different things as well. So there's a couple of questions that I will get to. What if we do not have Planner in our apps list? So if you are school-based and you find your apps list here looks different to me, what that means, or different to mine, what that means is that your school hasn't turned on something. So have a chat to your tech or your ICT school technician and see whether they can turn that on for you, and then you should be able to use it. Do student laptops within schools have these apps on them? So they should, unless the school hasn't turned something on, Debbie. So if you're a TRT, if you're able to check in the morning whether the site has them on. Most sites do, but sometimes you do find that they don't. But most of the more common ones would definitely be switched on. The ones that don't tend to be, unless someone's asked for it, are maybe bookings, planner. I didn't know, but it looks like that might be one that hasn't, might need to be turned on if it isn't showing as well. But most of the others tend to show. Okay, so you can go to our YouTube channel for extra help. We have a team on Teams, the M365 Apps Support and Collaboration team, and I'll put the link to that in the chat as well. Maybe if I copy it. There we go. But you're welcome to join. There's lots of people on there, so you can always ask questions. And if I can't answer, someone else, hopefully in the department, will be able to answer for you. And the last place is on Plink. And that's the Digital Skills dashboard. Once it loads. So you can get to the Digital Skills dashboard through the Explore and Digital Skills. And on our dashboard, we've got short information articles about everything to do with tech. We've got courses that you can join, and also we've got some help videos on here as well, and some tips and tricks down the bottom. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Again, apologies that we didn't quite get through all the content, but hopefully you found out some information about the different things that are available for you and some of the ways that you might be able to use them in your work, either admin, corporate, or with students.